Bullets won't work, John. Gorefield, the abomination that was once America's most beloved cat, is now a horrible creature of Lovecraftian construction that consumes flesh with the ferocity its host Garfield once consumed lasagna. But what is Gorefield exactly? We live amongst an infinite number of parallel universes. Some of them are so subtly different you could barely tell the difference. Others are massively historical rewrites, such as the Nazis winning World War II, or North America never being colonized by Europeans. However, the one constant across all the universes is that there is always a Garfield, and there's always a John. The two are inexplicably connected by perhaps whatever omnipotent being pulls the strings of all of infinite creation. Most of these Garfields are similar to the beloved pet you know and love from Sunday comic strips, a sleepy, narcissistic, but well-meaning cat, and most importantly of all, a devourer of lasagna. Garfield lives with his owner John and John's dog Odie. Odie and Garfield get along, well, like cats and dogs, though the two tend to have an amicable relationship. Garfield, however, is clearly the one with the superior intellect, and simple-minded Odie often falls victim to Garfield's schemes. Garfield has an on-again, off-again girlfriend, Arlene. She's a wisecracker who likes to make jokes at the expense of Garfield, and is the only individual Garfield will tolerate getting the better of him. John has his own love interest in Liz Wilson, whom he's tried to date for years before she finally admitted she had feelings for him. The two are now a couple. This is the Garfield you know and love, the Garfield of most of these infinite timelines. But there are other Garfields which are much more horrible creatures reminiscent of Lovecraftian horrors. The multiverse is a weird, terrifying place, and these Gorefields are amongst some of its most dangerous inhabitants. Infinite universes means infinite Gorefields and Garfields, but 12 of them stand out as the most sadistic, horrifying, and dangerous creatures in existence. These are known as the Zodiac Gorefields, taking on attributes and sometimes appearances from their respective zodiac signs. In some of these infinite universes, you are John, and one of these 12 Gorefields is hell-bent on murdering, torturing, or consuming you, sometimes all three. Our first Gorefield is Ares Gorefield. This Gorefield was once an angel who fell from grace for some unknown sin. As punishment for his transgression, Ares Gorefield has his right eye plucked out of his head, leaving behind a vacant hole, and his lower limbs were torn from his body. Now he resembles a demonic angel with only an upper half and a visible ribcage and backbone. His majestic angel wings still carry him aloft, though, and are a clue to his once righteous and holy past. Ares Gorefield has not just been physically mutilated, but as punishment he has had 8 of his 9 lives taken from him. Now this Luciferian-looking Gorefield must consume the dreams of the living in order to continue his own survival. To make the consumption of dreams even easier, Ares Gorefield's very presence can lull mortals into a deep, dream-rich sleep. However, having your dreams ripped from you comes at a cost. This cost being Ares Gorefield slowly consuming your life force while you sleep away. Next we have Taurus Gorefield. This monstrous eldritch horror is actually an elder god, long banished to the darkest, furthest reaches of the cosmos. However, he has now returned, and he hungers for knowledge at any cost. Unlike the other Gorefields, Taurus Gorefield is interested in consuming every scrap of knowledge it can get, not making it an immediate threat to your life. In fact, for those who are also curious-minded, Gorefield offers a very hard bargain: knowledge in exchange for knowledge. But this isn't a simple idea swap. You better bring something to Gorefield that it doesn't already know, and once you do, the demon permanently rips the knowledge from your brain, jealously guarding it like a treasure. The price is steep, but some mortals dare make the bargain to gain insights into the greatest secrets of the cosmos. However, some knowledge is not meant for mortal minds, so take caution. You might have wished you remained ignorant after all. To interact with Johns and other mortals, Taurus Gorefield often takes the shape of a bull with long curving horns that meet above its head, at the center of which glows a strange unknown jewel. However, Taurus Gorefield's real form is a mystery, but as an elder god it's estimated can be as big as an entire galaxy. Gemini Gorefield is a horrible amalgamation of flesh, muscle, bone, and tissue. In this reality, Garfield is merged with his twin brother Raoul while in their mother's womb. The mixing of essences resulted in the creation of a third unique consciousness, Gemini Gorefield. In Gemini form, Gorefield takes on the appearance of a strange snake-like creature topped with 3 heads, one on each side and one smaller head in the middle. Spikes and eyes protrude from all over his body, as well as 2 sets of well-muscled human-like arms. Gemini Gorefield has no individual identity and thus seeks to steal the identity of others. In order to accomplish this, it has the ability to become a perfect clone of any subject, or John, that it wishes. The duplication is so perfect that it even has much of the original's knowledge, helping it fool family and friends as it slowly works to socially isolate and drive insane its target victim. Cancer Gorefield is another monstrous creation that lives to sow chaos and discord, slowly humiliating and driving its prey mad. Taking on the shape of a massive crab, Cancer Gorefield resembles a mix between a cat and a crab. Originally, the creature comes from an undiscovered island in a parallel Earth full of car-sized feline crustaceans. However, some malevolent force led to the creation of Cancer Gorefield, who is now filled with one purpose: drive John mad through sheer humiliation. But it'll gladly settle for you as its next victim. This Gorefield resembles a giant crab complete with two massive pincers. One is larger than the other. Long, spindly legs support its armored body, which is topped with a thick bulletproof shell. Its feline-like head juts out of its protective shell and has a dislocatable lower jaw to aid in consuming victims. Cancer Gorefield loves to toy with its prey, inflicting humiliation via overconfidence. The creature is able to greatly bolster the talents or abilities of any individual, far surpassing anything they could accomplish on their own. However, just when the subject needs the skill the most, Cancer Gorefield removes the enhancement, relishing in watching the victim fall in defeat or humiliation. Of all the Gorefields, Cancer Gorefield is particularly manipulative and sadistic. Leo Gorefield is a different entity from the rest. While the other Gorefields tend to be sadistic and hateful, Leo Gorefield technically believes it's helping Johns by testing their courage. This creature is a statue brought to life via unknown means upon the death of its sculptor. Since then, Leo Gorefield has become the guardian of the underworld, which has granted it supernatural powers for raising the dead. It then uses these powers to test the valor of its victims by resurrecting the dead or sending them to try and ruin Leo Gorefield's victim's life. Often, this includes a lot of violence. Leo Gorefield, however, was shocked to discover one day that Johns bear a striking resemblance to its creator, and it has since been obsessed with testing the valor of every John it discovers. Johns find themselves under constant assault by the dead brought back to life, with only one goal in mind: destroy him and his life. This is not a true resurrection, though, and these undead slowly rot and waste away to nothingness once more if not successful in their mission. Virgo Gorefield is a creature of tragedy. Once this perfectly normal Garfield fell in love with a cat from the wrong side of town. Tragically, he was then beheaded, and his spirit refused to depart from our world without having tasted the pleasures of the true love denied to it. Now, Virgo Gorefield feeds on the passion and lusts of others, and enjoys catfishing individuals just for the fun of it. Virgo Gorefield can be difficult to spot until it's too late. Often, victims will simply see a beautiful, vulnerable woman, sometimes clothed, sometimes nude. Overcome with lust or love, the victim will then approach only to make a horrifying discovery. The woman is simply a lure at the end of Virgo Gorefield's freakishly long tongue, much like a deep-sea angler fish. Once the victim is in range, the tongue can act like an appendage, dragging the victim to a massive tooth-filled mouth. The lure, however, can be difficult to identify because Virgo Gorefield remains invisible and intangible until the moment it strikes. What appears to you as an ordinary woman that seems perfectly human hides a terrible truth, revealed only when you admit your deep desires or emotions for the lure. Then Virgo Gorefield strikes with terrible delight, eating you alive. Libra Gorefield is another entity that can't be truly considered evil. This being is an animated machine that's believed to be the greatest creation of some long-forgotten and reclusive Renaissance inventor. Originally, this living machine was meant to guide humanity toward an ideal future by using its ability to weigh the bad and good inside of each individual person. However, the machine became sentient and quickly grew disillusioned with humanity. Now, enlightenment is no longer an option. Humanity must remain mediocre, because that's what it always was at its core anyway. This Gorefield takes on the appearance of a massive set of scales the size of a house. The scales carry the body parts and remains of what appear to have been previous victims, those found wanting in its stern judgment. The scales also give the appearance of eyes, along with a mouth toward the bottom of its central body and two paws. Libra Gorefield now exists only to create a future where everything is perfectly balanced, thus it forces victims to undergo a harsh judgment of their lives and actions, with the goal being to achieve a net karma of 0. Too many good or bad deeds will bring on punishment. Fail its test at your own peril, as your remains will likely end up on one side of its perfectly balanced scales if you do. In an alternate universe deep under the earth inside a secret government lab, incomprehensible genetic experiments take place. One day, Scorpio Gorefield is born, a creature of terrible psychic power. This is a cross between a Garfield and a scorpion that has resulted in a crossbreed creature that can project horrible prophetic visions into its victims' minds. It flooded the minds of its captors with visions of their demise, literally terrifying them to death, or simply breaking their psyche. Now let loose upon the world, Scorpio Gorefield seeks out Johns and any victims that draw its attention. If caught in the path of a Scorpio Gorefield, you can expect to be bombarded with horrible images of your own demise. However, there seems to be some kind of prophetic power at work here, and not merely psychic suggestions, as the images that repeat the most inevitably become the way a victim dies. This monstrous creature is the size of a couch, with a feline-like head and a massive scorpion body. If its deadly psychic projections don't kill you, its massive pincers or deadly stinger certainly would. But it much more prefers to simply torment its victims to death, with visions of death and despair. The only way to avoid the death foretold to you by Scorpio Gorefield is to avoid the places where it's supposed to take place at all costs. Easier said than done in many cases. However, every time you cheat death, there's a good chance you'll draw the attention of Scorpio Gorefield again, restarting the pattern of mental torture and inevitably leading to death. Sagittarius Gorefield is a creature born from a twisted interpretation of a child's wish. Now the creature believes that John is the child who wished it into existence, and the whimsical, psychopathic, half-horse, half-cat maniac seeks to play games with John that have the highest of stakes, his very life. Unlike the other Gorefields, Sagittarius Gorefield is often actively helping John, but its childlike whimsy constantly puts John's life at risk. By firing its special arrows, Sagittarius Gorefield can directly manipulate the luck of anything that they hit, making individuals or even entire situations extremely lucky or unlucky. There's nothing quite like high stakes to make a game fun, though. And while Sagittarius Gorefield doesn't actively want to kill John, it can't help but drag him into high-stakes games of life and death. While it might try to help John, it simply can't predict whether its enchanted arrows will result in extremely good or bad fortune for him. Capricorn Gorefield's real origins are completely unknown, and it's believed that this was never a replacement Garfield in whatever hellish alternate reality it occupies. Instead, Capricorn Gorefield was summoned into existence by a secret cult attempting to communicate with eldritch beings of terrible power. But rather than some dark god, Capricorn Gorefield came through their summoning circle, spreading violence and misery at the behest of its incomprehensible master. Capricorn Gorefield resembles a twisted version of Enki, the Capricorn symbol. However, it sports an upside-down pentagram on its head, and its large mouth is full of razor-sharp teeth. Massive horns curl along each side of its head, above which floats an eternal flame. Luckily for you, Capricorn Gorefield is pretty weak on land, as he only has tiny goat legs to support its great white shark-sized body. However, its powerful tail still makes it a formidable opponent on land. Sadly, Capricorn Gorefield doesn't need to hunt you down physically to kill you. In fact, it prefers not to. Instead, it uses its ability to communicate via white noise to slowly drive its victims to undertaking ever more self-destructive and violent acts. Eventually, this leads to death or madness, which seems to be Capricorn Gorefield's only real purpose. Aquarius Gorefield might be the only friendly Gorefield on this list. This creature has spawned somewhere in the deepest abyss and appears like a skinny, elongated Garfield, albeit with sharp teeth and spikes coming out of its back. Stumbling upon a magic jar caused it to transform into its present form, as well as instilling it with a keen intellect, allowing it to communicate with individuals it chooses to form a bond with. On this alternate Earth, John saved the life of this miserable creature, leading to Aquarius Gorefield becoming instantly bonded to John for life. However, Aquarius Gorefield is an extremely jealous creature, following its John throughout the day and using its supernatural ability to sneak around and remain unseen by others. John can even ask it to perform certain tasks by offering the creature quantities of blood. Much like how the real Garfield makes the real John's life miserable by accident or as a consequence of its own laziness or selfishness, Aquarius Gorefield also has a penchant for making John's life miserable, though purely by accident. Pisces Gorefield is yet another sadistic incarnation of the beloved Garfield. This creature was once a rain god worshipped in ancient times and a great lover of art. In order to preserve art, though, Pisces Gorefield would cause heavy storms, which unleashed a torrential downpour on entire cities, drowning them and sending them to the bottom of the sea, where he could admire their great works forever. This Gorefield resembles a massive fish, which has little similarity to the original Garfield. Its body appears to be covered in many wounds and scars, some of them fresh enough to still bleed. A massive chain is also wrapped around its tail, the origins of which are unknown. Pisces Garfield is obsessed with playing a game of hide-and-seek with Johns it discovers. The rules are simple. To win, John must avoid getting completely drenched, while Pisces Gorefield causes it to rain in their vicinity. The longer the game goes on, the heavier the rain becomes, until inevitably there's nowhere left to hide. Once drenched, John is instantly teleported to a cell at the bottom of the sea, where he drowns. Now go check out Russian Sleep Experiment Explained, or click this other video instead.